Hello everyone, my name is Zinhle. Feel free to call me Z while you practice, and welcome to Diaspora Horse. Ooh, that sounded kind of good. This is a talk space I've created to do my part to dispel and destroy the diaspora wars and encourage the Black, African, and Caribbean diaspora to interact and engage with each other through the lens of, as the late Walter Rodney said, revolutionary, socialist, and people-centered perspectives. Welcome back, Double Blind. Tyler, I'm sorry. Have we listened to A-pop? Have we listened to A-pop? Because I have, baby, and wow. If you can hear a whirring in the back, it's because it is 31 degrees. So, askis, but I'm sweating. I'm sweating in the crib. Today's episode I'm kind of nervous about because it's just going to be me. It's just me. What's so funny is I started Diaspora Wars because I wanted to create a space for myself to share my own opinions, share my own perspectives, and to give myself a space to share my voice. But the idea of filming an episode by myself is freaking terrifying. But it's like, babe, that's why we're doing this. Just a quick little update. I've been good. I quit my job. Every time I say it out loud like that, it's funny. I put in my 2 weeks, and today is Wednesday, the 12th of August. Solar eclipse in Leo. Oh, as a Leo rising, I'm purring. And my last day is this Friday, the 14th. I feel really good. I feel so at peace with my decision. I've known for a while that I wanted to leave the company, but at the end of May, I scheduled the email that was me putting in my 2 weeks, and I gave myself 2 months to ask myself, to ask Source, ask Spirit, ask my higher self if this was the decision that I was going to make. And by the time the email was sent, I was very certain that this is the move that I am ready and willing to make. We'll get into I'll share more tea as there's more distance between me and the company that I was working for, and also me and the holy shit, what's next. But I feel really good about it. I feel very excited, and yeah, onwards and upwards, babes. Today's episode, I'm going to get a little intimate, a little personal. I'm going to talk about Black women and our bodies, and I'm going to speak about my experience as a Black woman with a Black woman body. Because, baby, it's interesting. It is. Gosh, where do we start? I guess I'll start here. I grew up in South Africa, as we know. First of all, shout out to Malawi. I don't know if you guys are watching WAFCON, but Malawi? You want to talk about Black women and their bodies? Those are athletes, honey. They all are, obviously. But Malawi is kicking ass right now, and I'm really, really proud. So shout out. Shout out. I don't know who's going to win. We'll see. I'm definitely watching the final. Okay, so when I was growing up, like most adolescents, I grew up chubby, but it was kind of expounded. Is that the word? What does expounded mean? I have my laptop here because I want to get into some expounded. I don't even know if I've ever used that word. Look at me go, baby. Oh, that wasn't correct. That wasn't correct, but now I know the word expounded, so hello. It was made more. I was chubbier because I was a secret eater. I grew up in an abusive home. I grew up in a home where I was neglected emotionally. I was abused physically and emotionally, verbally, and so were the other women in the home that I grew up in. My mom and I kind of touched on it in the episode that she was in, but my mom also was then abusive towards my sister and I. And so I just didn't feel good about myself, and the way that I would seek comfort was through food. I used to eat, this is so funny, actually, it's not funny, haha, but funny as in, I remember a couple of years ago I was talking to my colleagues about how I'd seen a TikTok about how being able to eat food cold usually reflects that you grew up eating in secret as a child. And I remember I was telling my coworkers, who are mostly men, ex-coworkers, because they got laid off, which is like a whole different thing. And they were like, why is eating cold food out of the fridge? And I was like, oh, because I used to eat in secret because I hated my body and I was embarrassed. And they were like, oh, trauma dump. My bad, y'all, my bad. But yeah, I used to, when I was preparing for this video, I can't even explain to you what it is or what it was that made me feel comfort by overeating and eating unhealthily. And I mean, I guess it was the feeling of being full, but whatever it was, I was overweight, but also just a Zulu girl. And so I grew up thick. My family used to say big boned. my family used to say big boned. And then, oh wait, I actually just realized that this is gonna go in a whole different direction. Yeah, so I grew up being called big boned, and then my stepdad, my mom's husband, is a white man from Europe, and so he came in like, why, like, bones don't jiggle, she's not big bone, she's overweight. And he definitely did some damage to my psyche and my relationship with my body. But it wasn't just him. You know, my mom grew up thin and a model, and so I always knew that she was disappointed in the way that I looked. I remember when we used to go shopping, and if I wouldn't fit into clothes, she would get angry, and I would just assume that it was because I couldn't fit into the clothes, and she was embarrassed and I was embarrassing her. But I just grew up with this. And also, I think I've mentioned this before, how my uncle used to call me Serena Williams, because and now, which is so beautiful, and I'm so proud of myself for getting to this point, but I love my thighs now. I love my legs. But when I was growing up, having thick thighs was not a desirable trait. It was not something that, you know, was seen in a positive light. And so my uncle used to say, like, okay, Serena, or he'd be like, oh, Serena Williams. And I think I have said this before, of how I didn't want to look like Serena Williams. I wanted to look like Serena van der Woodson, because that was the idea of beauty. That was the idea of, you know, femininity, was to be skinny. And skinny wasn't for me. And so I grew up hating my body. And I don't think I realized how much I didn't like my body until I started to work on my relationship with it. I didn't care about what I wore. I just wanted to cover my body. I remember being told not to wear light colors, not to wear tight clothes. So I would just wear baggy, dark clothes all the time, because I just wanted to hide my body. And it wasn't even ever positioned as, oh, you should be healthy. It was just like, you need to be thin. And that was, you know, super toxic. But also, being a voluptuous woman, I remember when I started to grow boobs. Woo! Baby, I want to tell you. It was crazy. I remember my aunt in Soweto, Aunt Figile. She used to say, I'm gonna sweep your chest so that your boobs don't grow, because God forbid I grow breasts, you know. And then when I did grow breasts, I remember my biology teacher in maybe grade 10 pulling me aside after class and being like, hey, so you are developing into a woman, and you need to size up your school uniform so that you can... Keep in mind, I went to an all-girls Catholic school, but like predominantly white. And so I remember her being like, you need to size up and cover, because my dress used to gap around my boobs, and I just had to hide that shit. And I remember when it was hot, I would wear tank tops or a low-cut shirt, and it would be like, cover yourself up. Why are your lungs hanging out? And I just remember being over-sexualized, and people feeling so comfortable talking about my body that it made me just want to hide it. It made me not want to even acknowledge it. I remember when I went to varsity, college in Sandton, and they didn't have on-campus housing, so I was living in a flat by myself. And I used to shower with the light off, because I had mirrors in my bathroom, and I did not want to look at my body. I mean, I remember growing up and wishing that I was a white girl, because they were just small, and being smaller was desirable, and my body was not desirable at all. So yeah, that was until I was about maybe in my early 20s. It wasn't until I moved to New York and I started seeing people with different bodies dressing however they wanted and being like, wait, you can do that? I remember being on the B26 bus and I think I was watching a video on Instagram where this woman who was larger than me was showing like, ooh, OOTD, and it was shorts and short skirts. And I remember sitting there like, wow, I can't believe she's allowed to do that. And my higher self, my inner Zinhle was like, well, she's allowing herself to do that because like she's just allowing herself to do that. And I remember thinking, wait, I can do that? Whoa. Because for so long I'd been taught that my body was something that I should be ashamed of, was something that I should want to hide. That seeing other Black women who again had a different body type, a different body shape to me, I was like, wait, I can't believe that they're just allowing themselves to dress that way. That's so crazy. And that's when I started caring about the way I dress. That's actually why I started sewing. I don't know if you guys know this, but I'm a seamstress. Yes, yep. I started sewing because I realized that the clothes I was buying didn't fit me the way I wanted to. Because, you know, they're just generically sized clothes. So that's nothing personal to, like, at that point I was shopping Shein. Don't shop Shein, guys, which is like a whole different conversation, which we'll get into, but don't. Fast fashion is terrible for you and for the planet and for everyone involved. But I remember I used to try on clothes and it didn't fit me, and so I started sewing. I went to classes. I got books from the library about how to learn how to draft patterns, and that's what got me into having a good relationship with my body. I started exercising, not for punishment but for pleasure. I realized that I actually do enjoy strength training. I do enjoy tonight I went to yoga. I love yoga. I love Pilates. I love strength training. Like I said, you know, I grew up playing netball. I grew up swimming. I was very active, but I also had a very unhealthy relationship with food and with my body. I saw exercise as punishment. Like, oh, you ate that, so now you have to go to the gym. And I'm just at a very different place now. I'm still working on it. I still definitely have insecurities. I still have things where I'm like, you can't wear that. And then the voice will be like, well, why not? Because now I'm the only person who's telling myself that. But anyway, so that's my personal experience. But I don't know if comforting is the right word. Something that is, I realize that it's bigger than me. I definitely realized this at some point, going back to my dad being a white European man and, you know, making me live according to a BMI scale, which, as we all know, was created for and by and with Swedish women in mind. And like, what the fuck does my body and a white Swedish woman have in common other than a heart and two breasts and two eyes? You know what I mean? Like, that had nothing to do with me. And yes, I'm not advocating for being unhealthy, but again, it wasn't about me being healthy. It was about me being thin. And that's not okay. And yeah, I had a conversation with someone who I filmed some stuff with, and she had explained to me too how when she was growing up, she would wear, you know, a pencil skirt, but because a pencil skirt tends to be form-fitting, she was told that she was dressed inappropriately. I mean, how many times have we seen on social media where there's a Black woman who's a teacher, for example, and she's wearing skinny jeans and a tank top or a t-shirt, and people are like, this is so inappropriate. I can see the shape of her body. I thought Ed Sheeran said you're in love with the shape of me. You know what I'm saying? It's just such a bizarre, and I'm sure that Caucasian women experience this too, but I'm a Black woman, so I'm speaking about the Black woman experience. And I would also love to have this conversation with a Black woman who has a different body shape, body form to me, because I'm sure they have their own, you know what I'm saying? I'm sure they have their own. Yeah. Women have for so long been conditioned to believe that our physical body is our most valuable asset, and that has allowed people to then comment on the way that it should look and the way that it should be. And I'm so grateful that we're now moving away from that, and also calling people out for how weird it is. You know, human beings are so strange. Our physical bodies are the one thing that we did not have control over, and yet we've decided to judge them as harshly as we can. I get, yes, because it's what I can see, but it's also like, dude, this is kind of just the way my body, this is what I grew into. What do you want me to do about it? Why are you trying to make me feel bad for the body that I was given? This is just the way that it's happening. So anyway, not only is it bigger than me, I would love to talk to you all about Sara Baartman, or Sara Baartman. I'm going to put a photo of her up on the screen. I'm reading this from South African history. Oh, by the way, free all cannabis prisoners, because like, what the hell? But I want to tell you all about Sara. So, she was a Khoi woman from South Africa. She was kidnapped and enslaved by the Dutch when they decided to come to South Africa and like fuck our shit up. She grew up in the Eastern Cape and was brought to Cape Town, enslaved, forced to be a domestic worker, and then she was sold. They said she signed a contract, but she didn't speak the language of the contract, and also the family who she was taken to Cape Town to work for apparently was running out of money, and so she was basically collateral in their attempt to save their riches. So she signed a contract with an English ship surgeon named William Dunlop, and he took her to England and Ireland to work as a servant and to be exhibited. If you can see this photo, if you are listening to this episode, Google Sara Baartman, S-A-R-A. Her surname Baartman is B-A-A-R-T-M-A-N. If you want to see more visuals, go onto the YouTube channel and watch this episode over there. If not, just Google her. I feel like, even though I do know that women's or human bodies develop in different ways, and I'm sure I have seen women who have this body shape, I feel like the drawings of her are more so caricatures. It would not surprise me if they were over exaggerating certain features, because she was essentially a part of like a freak show exhibition in Europe. This is going back to the South African History Online report. Sara Baartman's large buttocks and unusual coloring made her the object of fascination by the colonial Europeans, who presumed that they were racially superior. She was taken to London, where she was displayed in a building in Piccadilly, a street that was full of various oddities. These are humans we're talking about, right? Englishmen and women paid to see Sara's half-naked body displayed in a cage that was about 1.5 meters high. She became an attraction for people from various parts of Europe. After 4 years in London, she was transported from England to France, and she was sold to a man who showcased animals. He exhibited her around Paris and reaped financial benefits from the public's fascination with Sara's body. He began exhibiting her in a cage alongside a baby rhinoceros. Her trainer would order her to sit or stand in a similar way that circus animals are ordered. At times, Baartman was displayed almost completely naked, wearing little more than a tan loincloth, and she was only allowed that due to her insistence that she cover what was culturally sacred. She was nicknamed Hottentot Venus. So actually, going back to the loincloth thing, guys, I Googled it, and I swear to God, if anyone else knows what I'm talking about, please tag me in it. I want to say John Cleese, but I can't blame a random white man. I remember seeing someone, a British comedian or British actor, being like, oh, I filmed this thing in South Africa with these Zulu women, and it was harder to get them to put their clothes on than it was to take them off. Because I don't know if you know this, most of you probably know this, in Zulu culture, in other South African cultures, men and women cover their lower regions, their genitals, and everyone is topless because everyone has breasts, you know? And I remember when I was growing up, seeing that and always being like, oh, okay, period. But then being told like, oh, that's shameful. Oh, and it's just so bizarre, because I have fully always understood that there is nothing inherently sexual. There's nothing inherently shameful about the naked body. And to know that my people, and, you know, across the continent, my people too understood that too. I understand the genitals, like whatever, but everyone has breasts. And also, again, like, what is wrong with being naked? The only time that it became an issue was when the white man got involved and we became overly sexualized and was seen as these things instead of people because they're whack. Anyway, her constant display attracted the attention of George, whatever, a naturalist. He asked if Sarah could be studied as a science specimen, and the French guy agreed. From March 1815, Sara was studied by French anatomists, zoologists, and physiologists. Sarah was used to help emphasize the stereotype that Africans were oversexed and a lesser race. She died in 1816 at the age of 26. It is unknown whether she died from alcoholism, smallpox, or pneumonia. All three are terrible. But to think that she was treated so poorly, I cannot imagine being her, being taken to foreign lands where you don't understand the language, but people are just looking at you and forcing you to get naked and forcing you to pose and poking at you. It makes total sense that she could have fallen into alcoholism. It makes total sense that they would have probably pushed her into alcoholism, and that eventually became a coping mechanism for her. Because, you know, kind of similarly to how I see people who are unhoused or people who are going through terrible situations. Look, I live a good life and I love a glass of wine. You know, I love a little doobie. In what world am I going to live through terrible circumstances and want to be sober? Are you for real? Okay, anyway. The naturalist, obtained her remains from local police and dissected her body. He made a plaster cast of her body, pickled her brain and genitals, and placed them into jars, which were placed on display at the Museum of Man until 1974. Following the ANC's victory in the South African elections, President Nelson Mandela requested that the French government return the remains of Sara Baartman so that she could be laid to rest. The process took 8 years as the French had to draft a carefully worded bill that would not allow other countries to claim treasures taken by the French. Woo! Finally, on the 6th of March 2002, Sara Baartman was brought back home to South Africa where she was buried. On the 9th of August 2002, which is Women's Day in South Africa, a public holiday, Sara was buried at Hankie in the Eastern Cape province. So yeah, it's been forever that our bodies have been treated as objects, as a part of, you know, we're not really humanized. And it's so sad to think that the colonial mindset of over-sexualizing, policing our bodies trickled down into family homes and to intimate spaces, because I'm a couple generations far removed from when the Dutch first got there, and yet all of that was still placed into me. White supremacy is such a lasting, terrible, I don't even know what the word is, dog. It's just fucking gross. And I'm so grateful to Black women through time who have done the work to undo all the terrible things that white supremacy and the patriarchy try to make us feel about our bodies. I am so grateful to live in a time where I'm allowed to have agency over my body and the way that I choose to dress it up, what I choose to do with it. Yeah, man. I think all women are beautiful, you know, all lives matter, whatever. But Black women, sorry, maybe I'm no better than a man, but Black women? Oh my God. Oh my God. And look how so many women of Caucasian descent are emulating our bodies. You know who I'm talking about, that one family up west. You know who I'm talking about. They have spent their lives, they spend money, they risk their lives. They inject their bodies with foreign substances to look like us. And to think for so long we've been taught that our bodies are not beautiful, our bodies are not good, our bodies should be something we're ashamed of. And yet there's an entire industry that is helping other women look like us. I would definitely like to expand on this conversation, on this discussion. Let me know how you would be interested in hearing that. Like I said, I would love to speak to another Black woman who has a different body shape, body type than me, and listen to their own experience and how different it might be from mine, and kind of compare our stories. But also, something I want to talk about is women and sex. Because I, a couple years ago, read a book called The Sex Lives of African Women, and I realized that that was the first time that I had really heard of or read something about African women and sex that wasn't rape, that wasn't abuse, and that wasn't like Ebony Slut gets like, you know. I had never really heard or seen of Black women enjoying, I had never heard or seen Black women and sex in a positive light, in a way that was pleasurable to them. You know, we know that sex, I guess it's not even sex, rape is a weapon of war, and that I was very aware of. I know that, you know, what is it called? Corrective rape for women who are queer or gay. I knew about that. You know, I would see music videos where women were scantily clad and, you know, shaking ass. Like, I knew that, but I never saw Black African women having good sex, having pleasurable sexual experiences. And I'm so grateful again to my mom, because as you all saw in the episodes that she was in, she told my sister and I to not marry the first man we slept with. And she also told us about masturbation. She taught us about pleasuring ourselves, and how important it is to know what feels good to you before someone else gets to dictate that to you. And so, yeah, I feel like it could be a whole different conversation, but that is for another day. I know this one is short, but yes, I'm going to become more comfortable with having episodes that are just me, where I'm just talking to you, because again, that's the whole reason why I started this podcast. So imposter syndrome is real, and it is silly, but it's very real, and I'm working through it, and I'm sure you all are too. With regards to me quitting my job, yeah, I'm going to spend more time. I'm going to have more time to work on this podcast. I'm filming on an actual camera this time. I have a light set up. We're being legit now. I was filming on my phone. As you all know, it was a little wonky sometimes. I have a legit tripod. Shout out to Trigger. Guys, I'm so lucky. I'm just so lucky. I'm so grateful to be surrounded by people who love me, who support me, who want to see me thrive and shine, and who know that I want the same for them. I'm just feeling gratitude as I wrap up this chapter. You know, I was with my former publication for almost 6 years, and I grew up a lot. I mean, I started off as an intern, and then I was a staff writer, and then I went into doing video on camera reporting. So I really did grow up in the company, but the company also kept me small in a lot of ways. So me deciding to leave, and me acknowledging that there is more and that there is better out there, is really, really scary, because for so long I've been told that, you know, what was made available to me was all I was worth, and that was all that was out there. And now I know that that's not true anymore, and I owe it to myself to at least try. So that's me. Love you down. Please stay tuned. I will see you soon, and be well. Bye.